let me show you how you can take the contents of this web page, then generate this optimization report based on the latest Google guidelines using a single prompt, all in under 10 seconds. Today, we're going to build a nice Python app that employs an agent that is capable of getting the contents of a blog post from a URL, then reading Google's documented content guidelines. And finally, it's going to be able to generate a PDF report based on the user request. Recently, lots of bloggers and content creators got mad at Google, especially after the March update, which slashed organic visitors by half or even more in many cases. Well, since I run a blog myself, gettingstarted.ai, make sure to check it out and create a free account to get updates about videos and get unlimited access to all of the source code that you see on this channel. So yeah, since I run this blog myself, we're going to build a smart AI agent that is knowledgeable about Google's guidelines and can answer questions by looking at my content and Google's guidelines, and then finally put everything into a nice PDF report. The agent is going to do all of these things from a single prompt. Now you can extend this by yourself as needed, but we'll just go over the basics so that you're familiar with how everything works. Okay, first let's go over the architecture. So we're going to use LlamaIndex to create a React agent. Now, a React agent not only understands and generates language, but also performs reasoning and executes actions based on that understanding. So it kind of thinks before it speaks. Cool. Then we're going to set it up to work with GPT-4o. Now you can use any other model, but just to keep things simple, we're going to use OpenAI's GPT. Then we're going to create 3 simple tools which will enable our agent to have the necessary capabilities to perform the tasks that we ask it to. Now, the first tool is going to convert Google content guidelines to embeddings, which then the model can use as reference when it's doing its thinking. And to do this, we're going to go to the Google Guidelines page on the web and then convert the page to a PDF file, which will then ingest and store as embeddings on the machine. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just stick along and it's going to become much clearer once we start writing some code. The second tool is going to read the contents of a given web page, and more specifically, it's going to use a LlamaIndex data loader. Now, you can build this yourself using Beautiful Soup, for example, but we're just going to keep it simple. So again, you don't need to worry about this now, since this will become much clearer in a bit. And finally, we're going to use a third-party library to convert the model's response, GPT-4o, from a markdown format to a nice PDF report. Let's do it. First, I'm going to head over to my browser here. I'm just going to search for Google Content Guidelines. And I'm just going to go to the first result, and then I'm going to save this document as a PDF. So you can do this based on your browser. Just go to File and then Export as PDF. Okay, after you save this, we're going to use this file to create our embeddings. So just make sure to download this as PDF, put it on the side. We're going to get back to it later. Okay, so I've created a new directory here, and I'm going to create a virtual environment first. So I'm going to do Python 3 -m vn. Cool. And then we're going to activate this environment. So we're going to do source vn bin activate. Okay, so we have a bunch of packages that we're going to need to install. So I'm going to start with LlamaIndex first. So I'm going to do pip install LlamaIndex. And then we're going to need to install the OpenAI package, which is now a separate package. So we're going to do LlamaIndex LLMs OpenAI. Next, we're going to do the data loader. So we're going to need to install a separate package as well. And this one's going to be LlamaIndex readers web. Okay, and then to read the PDF file, we're going to need to install another data loader package, which is going to be the LlamaIndex readers file. And then we're going to hit return. Okay, now we're also going to need to set up our environment variables. So I'm going to create a .env file, but to do this, we need to install the python.env package. So it's going to be pip install python.env, hit return. Okay, and finally, to convert the markdown to a PDF, I did use something called Pandoc. And this is an open source library, and there's a Python package for it. You need to make sure to install Pandoc first, and then you can install the PyPandoc package. And you're going to have to do pip install PyPandoc. I'm going to leave a link in the description for Pandoc just to see how you can set it up on your machine. It's different if you're on Mac or Windows. Just follow the steps. It shouldn't be very complicated to do. Okay, after you have these packages installed, we're ready to write some code. And we're going to start by creating our first file, which is going to be the main.py. So we can do touch main.py. Cool. Now let's open VS Code, and we're going to start by creating a few folders. So the first one is going to be tools, and this is where we're going to set up our tools. And the second one is going to be data. Now the Google Content Guidelines, the file that we've exported to a PDF, you're going to place it here in the data folder. I'm going to do this now. So let me just grab it and copy it here. Perfect. And then within our tools folder, I'm going to create 3 files, each one its own tool. So the first one, we're going to call it .py. The second one, web reader.py. And the third one, report generator. .py. Okay, so we have the data folder, the tools folder. Now we're going to create a .env file, and you're going to paste your OpenAI key here. So we're going to do OpenAI API key, and you're going to paste your API key here. Okay, cool. Now let's go to the main.py file and start to import some of the packages. First, we're going to need to import OS, then .env, load.env. Now I'm going to import the LlamaIndex packages. So I'm going to do from LlamaIndex.llms.openai import OpenAI. Then I'm going to do from LlamaIndex.core.agent import React. Next, we're going to create the LLM. So it's going to be LLM OpenAI. And for this tutorial, I'm using GPT-4o. Now you can use 3.5 Turbo or 4 or whatever model you want, but I think GPT-4o is pretty good and its pricing is decent. So it's about half, I think, if I'm not wrong, the price of GPT-4, and it's much faster. So it's pretty good for this tutorial. Okay, next we're going to set up our agent. So we're going to do agent, React agent from tools, because this agent is going to be using some tools. Now we don't have the tools yet, but I'm just going to set up the array here. So I'm going to do tools, and this is empty for now. We're going to add our 3 tools here once we write the code, and then we can actually use them. So it's going to be tools, empty list, and then it's going to be LLM true, just so we can see what's happening. So this gives you more information. Finally, I'm going to set this app to accept a user input, and it's going to wait for the user input so that you can interact with the agent from your terminal. So I'm going to do while true. It's going to be user input. So this is a Copilot suggestion. I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to do if user input lower quit. So that's going to break. Sorry about that. And then we're going to do response agent.chat user input, and we're going to print this. So it's going to be print. I got a new keyboard, still not used to the keys, so sorry for the typos. And then we're going to do a response. Okay, this looks good. Now let's go ahead and create tools. The first one here is going to be our guidelines, and this one basically is going to take the PDF file that we've downloaded from Google, and we're going to convert it to embeddings, and then we're going to check if it exists, and we're going to load these embeddings from the current storage that we have. Usually you could hook this up with Pinecone or a vector database. We're not going to do this now just to keep it simple, but it's the same concept. So we're going to create 2 functions. The first one is going to load the index, and then the second function is just going to return a query engine tool so that it could be used by the agent to query the embeddings whenever it needs to. Okay, so first I'm going to do a few imports, and then we're going to write these functions. Let's start by doing import OS, and then we're going to do from LlamaIndex core import storage context, and then vector store. I'm just going to move this out of the way so you can see index, and load index from storage. Okay, next we're going to do from LlamaIndex.core.tools. We're going to import query engine tool and tool metadata. Now, obviously you can check the LlamaIndex docs. Everything is there, and they have a nice feature where you could chat with the docs. So it makes things a bit easier. And then next we're going to import PDF reader. So this is from index, LlamaIndex readers file, and import PDF reader. And this package here is going to load the contents of the PDF. So we're going to start by doing load index. This is our first function, file path, and then index name. We're going to do data, PDF reader, load data, and we're going to say file is file path. Okay, then we're going to check if the index exists, then we can load it. Otherwise, we can create it. So to do that, we're going to do if os.path.exists embeddings index name. So if the index exists, we're just going to load it using the load index from storage method, and we're going to use the storage context defaults persist. This is the directory persist directory. It's going to be embeddings and then index name. Okay. Else, if it doesn't exist, we're just going to create it. So it's going to be index vector store index from documents data show progress. This is optional here. I'm just going to keep it to false. If you want to see the process of ingestion or actually converting the contents of the PDF to embeddings, you're going to see a nice like loading in your terminal. So you can flip it to true and you can see that. I don't care about it for this tutorial, so I'm going to keep it false. And I'm going to do storage context persist. We're going to save it. Persist directory. Okay, obviously I can use a variable for these since it's repeated, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. Let's do a return index at the end. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to create our second method, which is going to return a query engine tool that the agent can use. So we're going to do as query engine tool. It's going to need an index. Okay, and we're going to do query engine index as query engine. Once we do this, we can easily look up information from this index using LlamaIndex. And then we're just going to return a query engine tool. And we're going to specify the query engine here. It's this guy. And then metadata, tool metadata. And we're going to provide two properties. And the first one is name. So we just provide a name here for this tool, guidelines engine, and then a description. For this, I'm going to say this tool can retrieve content, the guidelines. All right. Now, finally, we're going to put everything together. So we're going to do file path, os.path.join data. So it's going to be our data folder. And we're going to be looking at this file. So it's the content guidelines PDF that we've downloaded from the Google website. Okay. And we're going to load the index. So we're going to do guidelines index, load index, file path. And this is actually index name equals. Finally, guidelines engine as query engine tool guidelines index. And this is the engine that we're going to use in our main.py. So if we go back here, we can now add in our first engine, which is the guidelines engine. Okay, perfect. Obviously, we're going to need to import it. So let me do tools.guidelines, import guidelines engine. Looks good. Now let's do the web reader tool. And for this one, it's pretty basic because we're going to be using a data loader that's already provided within LlamaIndex. From LlamaIndex.core import summary index. So we're going to use summary index. There are other index types. For this one, it's pretty basic. It's going to get the job done. And then we're going to do from LlamaIndex.core.tools. We're going to import the same guys here. So query engine tool, tool metadata. And then we're going to do from LlamaIndex.readers.web, import simple web page reader. And this is what's actually going to be doing the scraping for us. It's going to load the contents of the URL that we give it. So let's start off by creating our first method within the web reader tool. So we're going to do load index URL documents, simple web page reader, HTML to text true, and load data URL. Next, we're going to say index summary index dot from documents, and we'll pass the documents. We'll just return index. Cool. Next, we're going to do just like before. So we'll say as query engine tool index, and this time we're going to do query index as query engine. We'll return the query engine tool. So we'll say query engine is this is a query engine. Well, you can name it whatever you want, but it is a query engine. So we're going to call it the query engine. And we're going to say metadata, tool metadata. Name is web reader engine. And the description is going to be this tool can retrieve content from a web page. Finally, I'm going to do a index load index, and I'm going to pass in a URL from my own blog, and you can pass in any URL for this, but I'm just going to say getting started, Crew AI beginner tutorial. And this is a tutorial that I've done on Crew AI. It's a cool framework if you're trying to build multi-agent workflows. So check it out if you want. I've done a couple of videos on it, and there are a few tutorials on the website. Okay, finally, I'm going to do web reader engine, query engine tool index. Cool. We save this, we go to the main, and then we add this tool, tools.webreader, import web reader engine. And as before, we can add it here. So web reader engine. Super. Next, we're going to create our report generator. We're going to do some imports, and then we're going to create our function and return the custom function tool so that the agent can use it. So I'm going to start by doing import OS. And then import temp file. This is just going to help us create a temporary file. And then we're going to do import pandoc. Then we're going to do from LlamaIndex.core.tools import function tool. And we're not going to be using a query engine. We're just going to be using a function for this. So we can use the function tool, and then the function tool could be used by the agent. So I'm going to do generate report, and then I'm going to say md text. This is the markdown text that's going to come in. Then we're going to do output file, and this is our final file. So this is the PDF file of the report, and let's do with temp file dot named temporary file dot md. Okay. All right, next we're going to do temp md.write. It's going to be md text.encode, and we're going to say utf, then temp md path. It's going to be temp md.name. Output dot convert file, temp md path, PDF, output file. I'm going to accept this, and then I'm going to say return success, just so that the model knows that this function executed successfully. So we're going to say return success, and finally we're going to do os.remove. Last thing, it's going to be report generator function tool from defaults. We're going to pass the function. Give it a name, report generator, and a description. This tool can generate a PDF report from a markdown text, and that's fine. And then I'm going to save. That's everything. This is our report generator, and we can use this in our main.py so that the agent can actually generate the report. So let's go to main.py, import it from tools.reportGenerator, import report generator, and then I'm going to add it here, report generator. Okay, that's basically everything in terms of code. Now we can give it a shot. Hopefully it's just going to work. So I've tried to run this and there are a couple of typos here. So just make sure that within your report generator, the from default here is actually from defaults. So I missed an S. And within your web reader, tool metadata, the D is lowercase. So just make sure to replace this and write it like this. So tool metadata, you have to change it here and you have to change it within the guidelines because we've used it here as well. So make sure it's tool metadata. Okay. After you do this, I'm going to go to the terminal and we're going to try to run this again. Hopefully nothing pops up this time. Okay, as you can see, we have view and now the console is just waiting for our prompt. And because we've done this, if we go back to our VS Code instance, let me just go back very quickly and show you. Here, now you can see that we have this embeddings folder, which was created for us. So this is essentially the content guidelines PDF that we've downloaded. And now it was converted to embeddings, as you can see here using LlamaIndex and the embedding model from OpenAI. So now we can use this index, or the agent can use this index and query the embeddings whenever we ask it to do so. Okay, I'm going to go back to the terminal and we're going to type our prompt. So I'm going to say, based on the given web page, develop actionable tips, including how to rewrite some of the content to optimize it in a way that is more aligned with the content guidelines. You must explain in a table why each suggestion improves content based on the guidelines. Then create a report. Cool, let's do it. Now some things are happening. I'm just going to go through each one so that you can see exactly how the agent is thinking and what's happening behind the scenes. But first, let's just wait till this is done. Beautiful. If we go up, as you can see, the agent is generating a thought. So it's saying, okay, the current language is English, whatever. I need to use a tool to help me retrieve the content from the given web page. And it decided that the action is to use the web reader engine. This is the tool that we've done. And it knows that this is the URL since we passed it. And then the thought again is saying, I need to retrieve the content, and it's going to use the same tool. So it's going to use the web reader engine, and it pulled the content from the page. This is the content. This is just a part of the content. And then another thought is that since now the agent has the content, it's saying that I need to refer to the content guidelines to develop actionable tips and rewrite some of the content to optimize it. Perfect. And it decided that in order to do this, it's going to use the guidelines engine, which is correct. So now it pulls information based on the guidelines, and this is what we call RAG, so Retrieval Augmented Generation. Now the LLM GPT-4o has access to extra information, which is the content guidelines, since we converted it into embeddings. So the agent is now querying this information, and it pulled the relevant parts. So the guidelines emphasize creating content that is helpful, reliable, etc. And then it's saying, I have the necessary guidelines to optimize the content. I will now develop actionable tips and rewrite some of the content to align it with the guidelines. Okay, I will create a table, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, and as you can see, this is the original content, the rewritten content, the table, all this stuff. Okay, and finally, it's saying I will now create a report based on the above actionable tips and explanations. And it decided that the action is report generator, which is the correct tool. This is the MD text parameter. So this is the MD format. And then the function ran successfully. And finally, our report is created. Content optimization report. And if we go to the PDF file, let me open the PDF file and I'll show you the report. It's actually pretty good and helpful. So obviously you can optimize this based on your specific requirements. And when you do that, you're going to see that there are some tweaking to do to fit specific use cases. But in general, this saves you a lot of time if done correctly. Let me show you VS Code. So as you can see, we have this new file here, content optimization report, which was generated by the agent. Cool. Now I'm going to show you what this PDF actually looks like. And it's quite impressive, to be honest. Just keep in mind that the web reader tool in this tutorial provides the agent with the ability to query the index. So if you're looking to get the full content from a URL, you may want to use a custom function using Beautiful Soup, for example, and then return a function tool instead of a query engine tool so that the agent has access to whichever part of the web page that you want it to process. You can find how to do this on the blog, gettingstarted.ai. So once I publish the post, make sure to check it out if you want to know more. So taking a look at this, you can see it's properly formatted. It looks good. good original content and then the rewritten content. And there's a table of suggestions and explanations, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. And for example, you can see that it's actually 2 pages. So yeah, it's saying like automate complex workflows instead of automate tasks. And then the explanation for this is provides a clearer picture of the capabilities, making the content more informative and helpful. Okay. Yeah, so basically you can optimize this as I've mentioned before, but just doing this in like 5 or 10 minutes and then generating this report in less than 5 seconds is pretty awesome. So that's it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you have some questions. I'd love to get your feedback. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.